Recognizes the Honourable the member for Burin-Grand Bank.
On both sides of this honourable House, I am truly humbled by the trust the electorate of the district of Burin-Grand Bank has bestowed upon me. The journey to a seat in this prestigious legislature is a momentous trek, and the destination for those of us who have been successful should not be seen as a prize, but as a commitment to those who work diligently to get us here. A commitment to those who saw fit to put their faith in us on Election Day when casting their ballots. And indeed a commitment to work for every resident of our districts, regardless of a political affiliation. Mr. Speaker, I send my heartfelt thanks to the dedicated team of workers who gave countless hours of their time to ensure my success almost 1 year ago, as I do to the almost 4,000 voters who supported me. I could not have been successful without them. As I said on election night in addressing my supporters, from Confederation Street, where I live in Fortune, to Confederation Hill in St. John's, I'm ready for the challenge.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, I make no promises back then except to work hard and demonstrate that their efforts and support were not in vain. As appreciative as I am of all who were there for me during the campaign and on Election Day, there are those whose guidance over the years has been so profound I would be remiss in not singling them out here today. First and foremost, my mother. No words can describe the support she has given me over the years, Mr. Speaker. She is the epitome of strength. I wouldn't be standing here today if it weren't for her support and guidance. Though very young when I lost my father, it was his example that profoundly impacted my life. He was a man who believed deeply in friends, family, and community. It's his example, Mr. Speaker, I try to follow as I lead my own life, and which gives me a sense of direction. Mr. Speaker, I was first exposed to politics at a very young age, and that was directly due to my grandfather, the late Gabriel Parsons. He was absolutely passionate about our party, and it was through listening to him and working side by side with him on numerous campaigns that I, too, grew very passionate about what some would call this province's favourite sport, politics. I know my grandfather and my Uncle Charles are both smiling down today approvingly. Uncle Charles was an ardent supporter right up to the time of his passing 5 years ago, Mr. Speaker. And to my partner, Craig, thank you for your many years of support and understanding as I have immersed myself in this political world. I come to this job with my eyes wide open. We all realize the stresses and strains of public life, and Craig's support has been unwavering for me, and I am truly thankful. Mr. Speaker, a person whose mentorship was largely responsible for my gaining the confidence to seek public office from the very beginning was the Honourable Judy Foote. As her special assistant for many, many years, I learned the true meaning of public service. It was during that time I became aware of the true needs of constituents, of the passion that is required to get the job done. I spent and continue to spend countless hours in conversation with Judy, not just as my former employer, but as my best friend. Undoubtedly, her knowledge and zeal for the job helped mold me into who I am today. Thank you, Judy. The district of Burin-Grand Bank was constructed of the entirety of the former Grand Bank district, as well as parts of the former Bellevue and Placentia West districts. I acknowledge the work done by the 3 former members who, until last year's election, represent the people I now represent. I honestly believe that, regardless of political stripe or ideology, practically everyone who offers himself or herself for public service does so for the same reason. We love our province. We love our province, and we feel we can make a difference in moving Newfoundland and Labrador forward. Rest assured, I will work diligently on behalf of the communities that comprise the district of Burin-Grand Bank. Ours is a district located on the southern and western parts of the Burin Peninsula, or the Boot as it's commonly known, and part of the Heritage Run. I invite all my colleagues to visit this part of the province, a region steeped in history, where not so long ago fishing and trading schooners plied the waters, a place where you can still see the occasional orange or yellow Grande dory tied to a wharf or pulled up on the beach as the sun glistens on the still waters of Fortune Bay East, or on the waters between my hometown of Point May and French islands of St. Pierre and Miquelon, a little more than a stone's throw away, Mr. Speaker. And next door, there's Lamoline, where I attended St. Joseph's Academy, along with my now colleague, the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development. So much to see, the beauty of Burin and the surrounding towns. Grand Bank, where several of its houses even today are topped with a widow's walk. Fortune, the gateway to the French islands, and having the prettiest and most colourful cluster of fishing stages you'll ever want to see, Mr. Speaker. Or stop by and read the storyboards that tell of the tidal wave that decimated much of the area in 1929. Storyboards that tell of the tragedy and heroism of the USS Truxtun and USS Pollux disaster in 1942, Mr. Speaker. Storyboards that tell of mining fluorspar in St. Lawrence. And road signs that direct you to communities such as Jacques Fontaine and Baie-l'Argent, Pointe-à-Galle and Port-au-Bras, Lamoline and Laon, to name a few whose names remind you of the French presence when the area was first settled, Mr. Speaker. And if you happen to be in Lords Cove, you owe it to yourself to visit the research centre where groundbreaking work is being carried out into wave energy and land-based fish farming. Yes, Mr. Speaker, so much to see, so much history and beauty, so many friendly people. From bake apple festivals to rolling seas festivals, from mummering and planking her down on Tibbs Eve, to potluck dinners on the menu of practically every restaurant and takeout, come visit for a truly unique experience. And with the hard work and tenacity that mark the many trail associations in the area, it's only a matter of time before you can leave your car behind and take in an even more unique experience via your ATV or snowmobile. Mr. Speaker, this past summer, my colleague, the member for Placentia West Bellevue, and I hosted 3 ministers on the Burin Peninsula. If the Minister of Business, Tourism, Culture and Rural Development hadn't already known about the tourism and business potential of the peninsula, he knows now, after the whirlwind tour we took him on in a 24-hour period, he won't soon forget. How good is that when you can take a minister responsible for tourism to Lords Cove and a whale graces us with his presence about 3 or 4 meters on the wharf where the minister was standing, Mr. Speaker. He got a chance to see what we have to offer. I have to mention our stop in Burin, where the minister had the opportunity to see the tremendous work being carried out there in developing its tourism potential. One of the visionaries for that work was Burin native and well-known entrepreneur, the late Tom Hollett, who was tragically killed in a motorcycle accident this past summer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Hollett will be missed, and I'm sure all members join me in again sending our condolences to his wonderful family. Mr. Speaker, the minister made a second visit to the peninsula this fall when he was guest speaker at the Burin Peninsula Chamber of Commerce Awards Banquet. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope you were as impressed with your visit as were the people of the area with you during your time spent with us, and I'm sure you'll never forget Sandy Cove. Later in the summer, the Minister of Children, Seniors and Social Development also paid us a visit, and I was pleased she could take time out of her busy schedule to visit the Miners Museum in St. Lawrence, where she experienced firsthand how the skilled workers at 3L Training and Employment go about producing beautiful jewelry from local fluorspar. I know she was extremely impressed by what she saw, as was the staff with her willingness to try her hand at the equipment. Thank you, Minister. Your visit with the workers at 3L Training and Employment was undoubtedly the highlight of their summer. Mr. Speaker, we also played host to the Minister of Municipal Affairs. His visit was much appreciated by the good people of my district. He helped to officially open the new community centre in Lamoline. Thank you, Minister, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us. But I did more than play hostess to ministers this summer, Mr. Speaker. This was not a summer for me to bathe in the sun and relax. I, along with my colleague from Placentia West Bellevue, have been very busy on files that have the potential to put the Burin Peninsula back on the economic map in this province. Construction is underway on the infrastructure that will be needed to return St. Lawrence to its rightful place as a major player in the mining industry in this province. We have worked diligently on another file that has the potential to be a game changer for our area, the Grieg Sea Farms project. We have also been involved in bringing parties together to get a deal struck on the Marystown shipyard, Mr. Speaker, and very hopeful that that will become a reality soon. There has been much concern over the last few months that our fiscal situation would see everything grind to a halt in this province. As we have seen with the many announcements for infrastructure projects, this is not the case, Mr. Speaker. We now have a new government in Newfoundland and Labrador and a new government in Ottawa who often see eye to eye and are determined to work together to revitalize this province. Hear, hear. I was pleased to be able to announce several important projects this summer, and I know there will be many more to come. Mr. Speaker, like all assembled on the floor of this honourable House today, I too recognize the tremendous challenges we as legislators are facing as we strive to steer our province through a very difficult economic time. However, we should not forget that ours has been a history of struggling against what often seemed insurmountable odds, yet surviving on occasion, and on occasion even flourishing. The area I represent is a prime example of this, Mr. Speaker. In the heyday of the fishery, the Burin Peninsula was the crown jewel in that industry, as people from around the peninsula took to draggers, their own inshore boats, or found steady work at some of the finest fish plants in Newfoundland and Labrador, or at the shipyard in Marystown. With the collapse of the cod fishery, the workers of the Burin Peninsula did what so many of their fellow Newfoundland and Labradorians have done for generations. They looked to the manufacturing centres of mainland Canada, to the oil fields out west, to our own burgeoning oil industry. But they did not forget the place they call home. Our communities did not die because our people would not let them die, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, we are in the midst of another economic downturn. But as always in time of stagnancy, there is also opportunity. The downturn in the offshore oil industry should serve as a wake-up call to us all. The proverbial all eggs in one basket scenario can only breed complacency and bring us to the point we are today. I know there are many cynics who cringe at the expression, diversify the economy. That idea has been bandied around so long with less than stellar results. But all good ideas have their day, and I believe, as do my colleagues, now is the time to look at other opportunities to grow our economy, Mr. Speaker. We are a province rich in resources, and we now have an obligation to develop those resources for the entire population. Mr. Speaker, the economic downturn that has left the country reeling has seen much of our workforce without employment. However, this is not a time to throw our hands in the air and give up. I am convinced, Mr. Speaker, that through working with industry and hand in hand with my colleague from Placentia West Bellevue, and indeed with the whole of Caucasus, the Burin Peninsula can and will be revitalized and regain its position as an economic stalwart for this province. We are already seeing this starting to take shape with the projects I have already mentioned, Mr. Speaker. I know through talking to my colleagues on this side of the House that each and every one of them has embraced that same attitude and is determined to work hard to rebuild every region of this province. Our economic rebirth will take time, but the time to start that process is now, not waiting for the price of oil to rebound to some desirable level. It will take the commitment of every member of this Assembly, every civil servant in our province, and in fact, a commitment from every Newfoundlander and Labradorian, Mr. Speaker. Our people do care and are only too willing to share their ideas and do their part to put us back on a sound footing. We cannot allow negativity to rule the day. Mr. Speaker, we are no strangers to rough times, sometimes made even rougher by tragedy. as we saw 7 years ago with the crash of Cougar Flight 491. A solemn anniversary marking the loss of 17 lives, including Birch Nash and Wade Drake from my district. An anniversary commemorated every year on March 12th. The tragedy that was the battle at Beaumont Hamel, where hundreds of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians fell, and which marked its 100th anniversary on July 1st. The tragedy of countless mariners and sealers lost at sea and on the ice fields, lost but not forgotten, as stunning memorials such as those at Grand Bank and Elliston attest, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we have seen our share of rough times, but we will persevere because perseverance is an endemic to the Newfoundland and Labrador psyche as the salt water off our coast, Mr. Speaker. We are sailing rough waters right now. Rough waters can be scary, but made much less scary when one realizes there is a competent captain at the helm. Our Premier is known for his unassuming, calm, and collected style of leadership. Yet underneath lies a passion and determination to steer Newfoundland and Labrador in the right direction and to give us back to calm waters. It is my belief, Mr. Speaker, as it was the belief of over 90% of delegates in Gander recently, that our Premier is the right man at the right time.
Hear, hear.
His message is simple. By working together, much can be accomplished. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I do not come blindly to this job. I know the task for all 40 of us is immense, but it is a job to which I am looking forward. And my only pledge is to not shirk from my responsibility to work hard on behalf of those who elected me, and indeed the whole province. We can choose to resign our province to a state of perpetual despair, or we can roll up our sleeves and do the work we need to put our province on the path to a bright future. Mr. Speaker, I choose to do the latter. Thank you.